Right. Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur-militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Wait a minute. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katada Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Tadavo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptaschakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we will begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus. Unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanita Pavishta Om Vishnupad Asta Tarasata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanita Pavishta Om Vishnupad Asta Tarasata Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. Unto our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, now I'm going to make sure the sound is okay, that it's not on two things. I think it should be all right. I think it's on this only. All right, so today is Sri Baladeva Purnima, the Avirbhav, the appearance day of Sri Baladeva Prabhu. Extremely important day. Wonderful, wonderful day. And we celebrate this day as we do with all Vishnu Tattvas. Where we fast until the appropriate time of his appearance, and then we break the fast with Ekadasi preparations. During our time in the earlier days, Srila Prabhupada was lenient towards us, and we only observed the Ekadashi during Gaur Purnima, Mahaprabhu, and Sri Krishna. But, and so I remember different feasts for Lord Balaram that were rather opulent, Lord Ramachandra. But in his own practice, I mean, prior to his training and being with us, you see in his diary when he was in his apartment, before he had gotten 22nd, 2nd Avenue and all of his devotees, it was Advaitacharya's appearance prior to Mahaprabhu, and he wrote in his diary, Ekadasi fasting. So he was following like that, right? But for Westerners to encourage them and make things a little easier, a little easier. And that's fine. Srila Prabhupada was expert. He did so many things to make sure that we could practice the basics, right? Chanting 16 rounds, reading, hearing, attending class, Mangalartik every day, going out on Harinam Sankirtan, and all of this because he was, in the words of, not himself, but in the words of senior Gaudiya Math devotees, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj, and ultimately others who acknowledged his being Nityananda Avesh, Baladev Avesh, specifically empowered by Lord Balaram, who we're going to hear about, who is the original principle of Guru. and who in his identity as Lord Nityananda was the primary force for preaching and expanding Mahaprabhu's mission. And so when we think of Lord Balaram, we also think of all of our Guru Varga, all of our Guru Parampara, and I can't help but thinking of Srila Prabhupada and the enormous power and force that he had in his preaching by the grace of Lord Balaram, by the grace of Nityananda Prabhu. So I found this really nice lecture given in Vrindavan in August of 2003, August 12th, by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj. And I think that we can read this. I have to make it a little bigger. Let's see. And a little bigger still. Here we are. Okay. So, Krishna appeared as, this was spoken in Hindi, but it was translated by then Aranya Maharaj and Rup Kishore, both who were very good at Hindi and had heard Gurudev and were capable of giving very good translations. So, Krishna appeared as Baladev to give instructions on how to serve himself. Right? Very important. As Baladev, because, anyway, he'll explain that. As one may massage his feet by his own hands, so Baladev is Krishna himself in the form of the Supreme Guru to teach others how to serve his lotus feet. They are one, but there is a slight difference in their forms. Krishna is black and Baladev is white, and Krishna carries a flute, whereas Baladev carries a buffalo horn. Because Baladev teaches service to Krishna, he is called Akhanda Guru Tattva, the complete and undivided principle of Guru. So there's something special in this, that as Baladev, he is the first expansion of Sri Krishna. So it's teaching how to serve, because Baladev has the special quality of self-identifying the abhiman of Dasyaras, of being a servant of Krishna. And there's a special joy in that, a special quality that Krishna himself actually wants to taste, right? And he tasted in full as Mahaprabhu. And he tasted also, even though Baladev is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that form, and he has his own Shakti and expansions and consorts and everything, he also has the joy of serving Krishna and teaching others how to. Right? And that's a nice example. You can massage your own feet by your own hands, right? So Krishna is accepting his own service through himself by expanding as Baladev, right? When Sri Baladev killed the donkey-shaped demon named Dhenukasura, he showed that only Guru can remove our ignorance. When he killed the demon Pralambasura, he showed that only the bona fide Guru can remove our hypocrisy and tendency towards political diplomacy. During the Battle of Kurukshetra, when Bhima was fighting with Duryodhana, Bhima cheated according to the codes of a Kshatriya by striking Duryodhana on his thigh. Baladev became angry because Duryodhana was his disciple. However, when he understood that Bhima had gotten indication from Krishna to do what he did, Baladev didn't say anything and simply left to go on pilgrimage. Okay. So, the Dhenukasura, there are many demons that appeared in Braj, and most were killed directly by Sri Krishna. But Baladev also took the role of killing some demons. And in the Krishna Samhita by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives explanation of what these demons actually represent. besides opposing Krishna and wanting to kill him and destroy all moods of devotion and love, they also have very specific tendencies, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur illuminates. And so when Baladev kills these demons, it's the indication in a special way that Sri Guru himself destroys these anarthas in our heart. So the Dhenukasura pastime was that, and we're going to read that this at noon. We'll have another little program for about an hour before Artik, and we're going to read Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. And we'll read different stories about Lord Balaram and the Dhenukasura stories there. But briefly, the cowherd boys, Krishna, Baladev, were in the forest wandering around with grazing the cows, but the cowherd boys were touched by powerful hunger, and they called it a demon. Oh, we have this hunger demon, and you have to kill that. There's a very beautiful forest nearby called Talavan. Van means the forest, Tala means the fruit tree that contains the tal fruit, which looks like a big eggplant-colored coconut from the outside. Not quite as big as a coconut, and inside are these very juicy, white, individual round fruits, right? And when they become very ripe, very, very sweet. They also cook them down to make a special kind of sugar. But the boys wanted to eat those fruits, but that forest was a special forest of just these trees. And it was the forest of King Kamsa. This orchard belonged to him. And he put the Dhenuka Asura, the demon Dhenuka, in charge of protecting it. No one could go there, right? Not even birds were there. And nobody could take the fruit, because if they did, Dhenuka would come and kill them and eat them. Even though he's in the form of a giant donkey ass, very large, he was also a cannibal. And his associates in that same form were with him. So it's a very terrifying place. Nobody went there. No animals and no people. But they said, hey, this demon guards it, but what's that demon to you? You kill so many demons. Let's go. So Krishna and Balaram, yes. And they entered the forest. Baladev grabbed the first tree and began to shake it vigorously. And when he did, all the fruits began to fall to the ground. Plop, 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 plop. Dhenuka at a distant place heard this and comes charging. Like donkeys, very angry. And seeing Krishna and Balaram nonchalantly taking these fruits with all the cowherd boys, he became enraged and he attacked Baladev. And in his large form, much bigger than a conventional donkey, he whirled around and kicked Baladev in the chest with his hind legs, which ordinarily would be enough to kill somebody or at least crush them. Baladev was unaffected, like a fly landing on him. And when he saw that, Dhenuka became enraged and kicked him again. This time, however, Baladev grabbed him by the hind legs and whirled him around so fast, so much centrifugal force, that the demon's life airs came out through his eyeballs, and he died, and he threw him into a tree. And then all these other ass demons came, and there were so many different colors, and they all came and attacked Krishna and Balaram, and they were whirling them around, just shoom, shoom. I think they only did it with their left hand. I think that was described, he grabbed them with the left hand, because, left hand, you touch dirty things. So, before you know it, all the trees were filled with these multicolored demon bodies. Srila Prabhupada said it looked like some panorama of colors. But they also, because when they died, sometimes when people die, their bowels become uncontrolled and they pass stool and they were bleeding. So the whole area became somewhat contaminated by these demons. And so the cowherd boys then left, right? They didn't want to take those fruits anymore. Over time, though, the sun and the rain purified the whole place, and people would go back and take the fruits very happily, no more fear. Oh, also, when they did throw the demons into the trees, many of the trees started going like dominoes, chung, 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 smashing all the others. So King Kamsa's, special little place, havoc. So there is, let's see, where did I put that? I want to read to you what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says about Dhenuka. Let's see. In the Krishna Samhita, he explains this in text 20 of chapter 8. Subtle discrimination is extremely important for Vaishnavas. Those who invent social distinctions and preach the unbreakable principles of Vaishnavism while breaking them to suit their own needs are said to possess gross discrimination. This gross discrimination takes the form of the ass Denuka. So the first thing we get to see is that they're preaching one thing, acting in another way, right? Very hypocritical. And then further, though, the ass, Denuka, he was not able to eat the tal fruits, the sweet palm tree fruits himself, and he opposed others' attempts to eat them. The purport is that the previous acharyas of the authorized sampradayas have written many spiritual literatures, which people with gross discrimination neither understand nor allow others to see. All right? So somebody who still has that anarta, this lack of deeper understanding, they can't grasp the enlightened literatures written by our Goswamis or by the other sampradayas, and they won't let anybody else read them either, right? Ask-like devotees who are simply interested in the regulative principles and under the control of gross discrimination are unable to attain a higher platform. In other words, regulative principles have their place, but they're meant to bring us to a certain platform where we no longer need them. We follow them, but not under the burden of rules and regulations, but because we've ascended to a much higher level. But if you're attached to rules and regulations without understanding the purpose and ultimate objective of those rules and regulations, restricting the senses and attending programs and doing our regulative practices, if you don't understand the goal and you're only doing the process, then you won't get there, right? There are three elements of bhakti. There's sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. And sambandha is knowledge of our spiritual identity, the nature of the material world, the illusory world, the covering of the illusory energy, the spiritual realm, the truth about Krishna, Radhika, bhakti, all of these different spiritual truths, and then the process that we adopt to achieve our ultimate objective, right? So without understanding that ultimate objective, then the process won't reap the same reward, right? And especially if you oppose and practice it without proper understanding and don't follow the previous acharyas. It's stated, Guru Padashaya Diksha, Guru Do Sevan, Sadharma Shiksha Priksha Sadhu Magunagaman. Right? We take shelter of Sri Guru, we take initiation, we follow the instruction, order of Guru, we inquire, make questions about scripture, about philosophy, spiritual truths, and we follow the path of the previous acharyas. We don't neglect it, right? So, Vaishnava principles are so unlimitedly exalted that those who simply remain entangled in the regulative process without endeavoring to understand the science of attachment, he means spiritual attachment, rag marg. This whole book, Krishna Samhita, is about rag marg. They're compared to ordinary fruit of workers. Therefore, until the ass Dhenukasura is killed, one cannot advance in the science of Vaishnavism. Right? Very important to understand. So, who kills Dhenuka? Baladeva Prabhu, right? Sri Guru. If we follow Guru properly, that's why Guru, at the appropriate time, delivers these more subtle and beautiful conceptions, and we follow them appropriately according to our own level, right? Not everybody can follow in the same way, but if we're under the instruction and guidance of proper Guru, then everything will take shape properly. It's also said earlier on that if a unqualified guru gives instruction to an unqualified disciple on these subject matters, then that won't be favorable, right? But guru is one who understands the proper path and the proper expression. So he also mentions, what? Yes?
Why this particular demon was killed by Baladev and not some other demon? Or why not Krishna killed this one, not the other one?
Well, Krishna, that's his main Leela. But Baladev, non-different from Krishna, remember, just to emphasize the importance of Sri Guru in this regard, the very specific role, because he represents that important anartha, because this Dhenuka means checking the fundamental truths and instructions that we need to follow, right? The ignorance of staying attached on a superficial level to the path of bhakti. It's not really bhakti if you're just following rules and regulations without any deeper understanding. And if you're opposed to Sri Guru, right? Dhenuka was opposed to Sri Guru. So by that opposition, even if one is, if we take it outside the metaphor now and take it to the reality, if one is following superficially, externally, scriptural rules and regulations, but is opposed to the underlying principles and the acharyas who actually presented them, then it's not really following at all. It's not really following at all. It's like Chanu and Mushtaka. They were fighting with Krishna in the arena. Krishna's taking great pleasure from that fight. But what was their motive and intention? To kill him. So was that activity bhakti? Krishna's getting pleasure from it? No, because bhakti has to be accompanied by the appropriate mood of love, right? So then we find, where's the Pralamba Sura? Oh, here we go. Pralamba, when Krishna and Balaram, they would go out every day and play with their friends, and oftentimes they would play the kind of games that young boys and girls in the world play. And one game was, I think it was some kind of cops and robbers game, right? And whichever side defeated the other, they had to take the defeated boys had to carry the other party on their shoulders, right? Like that, running around. So they played a few times, and they all divided up. And one boy was not able to come that day. It was his birthday or something. He had to stay home. So this demon, Pralamba, took the role, to assume the form and shape of that boy. Disguised himself as that boy to mix with the cowherd boys. And after playing many rounds, it turned out that the side that he was on won, and Baladev's side lost. So Baladev carried this boy on his shoulders, who was actually the demon Pralamba. Because Pralamba had thought, so many demons have come to try to kill Krishna, but none were successful. Right? I think that's because they tried to kill Krishna first. If I kill Baladev, though, Baladev is so dear to Krishna that he will lose heart and become weakened in his spirit, and then I'll be able to kill him. Right? So I have to kill Baladev. And so that was his intent. And he's carrying Baladev, and then he starts running away from the group. He says, I got to do it, but I got to get far away. Nobody can see me do this. And so he's running, and Baladev's wondering, where are we going? And Baladev represents, he is Sandini Shakti. He is the creative force and energy for this planet, all the planets, all the universes. And so he's heavy. Guru also means one who's very heavy. And beginning to, so he's very heavy, and the demon, even though he's very powerful in that little boy form, he's not as strong. So he said, I've got to take on my real form in order to carry this Baladev. And so all of a sudden he expands into this gigantic form. Huge, tall, blackish demon with ornaments, huge teeth, curly, weird hair, gingery, curly hair, demon-y looking, Not all ginger hair is demoniac, but his was. So then Baladev sees, what is this? And the beauty of Braj Leela is that by their own internal energy, Krishna and Balaram will be so absorbed in their identity as cowherd boys that sometimes they forget that they're so powerful and godlike. They are God. So Baladev for a moment, he goes, oh, what's this? I'm on top of a demon. But then he realizes, oh, this demon, he's come to kill me, he's come to kill Krishna. And so then he strikes him on the head. And this huge demon begins to, blood's coming everywhere. It was like, you ever see a volcano, how it shoots out from the Black Mountain from these holes sometimes? Looked like that. Whoosh. And with one blow, the demon is killed and he falls to the ground. And he's dead. Right? And all the boys see that and they go, right, So Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that impersonalists desire to merge the soul in the impersonal Brahman. Right? They think that the perfection of life is to merge into the undifferentiated spiritual energy of God called Brahman. In other words, searching for the liberation of complete merging is the defect of stealing the self, because there is no happiness in that state. Right? In effect, you're killing the self because you are losing your identity. Right? And by merging into that your individuality becomes completely covered. There's a state where people can do that, but it's very regrettable. Vaishnavas consider that hellish, even though impersonalists think, oh, we're going to be freed from all material anxiety, all the restrictions, all the limits. They consider that liberation, yes, but they're denying themselves the joy of full spiritual existence and liberation and realization of one's own spiritual personality and identity and relationship with God. Loving relationship. So neither the living entity nor the Lord gain anything from this. If one believes the impersonalist philosophy, then he must accept this material world as false. Right? Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya. That's what they say. Brahman is real, material world is false. One then denounces Brahman as indifferent and gradually develops doubts about the basis of Brahman. If one deeply discusses this topic, then he's compelled to accept meaningless nescience and non-existence of the living entities. So, if one is aspiring for Brahman, one may actually drift into voidism. There's impersonalism, and then there's voidism. Right? Voidism means there's nothing is real. Right? So, by the process of philosophical speculation, when you think, oh, ultimately, real truth is to merge into that spiritual energy, but then you begin to think, well, if there is spiritual energy, then what is this material world? How does it really exist at all? Does it really exist? And if it does exist, why is there all this suffering, all this weirdness? One becomes very confused, very doubtful, and that philosophical speculation will lead to complete voidism. So, in our line, we are opposed to nirvishesh shunyavadi. Right? One means realization of spirit without qualities, and one means no qualities at all, just complete absence of all existence. How they ultimately come to that through logic is a mystery when you study the reality of spiritual truth, but this is the nature of philosophical speculation. It's full of self-contradiction and incomplete. And as long as the sense of neglect and envy towards God is there, any philosophy can come forth and make sense to you. You know, cognitive bias allows us to believe many things that are very weird, even in this world. So what to speak of spiritual truths? So thus, all mankind's endeavors and considerations become meaningless. Sometimes this philosophy enters among Vaishnavas in the form of pralambasura to spread anarthas in the form of stealing the self. This is the 12th obstacle in the Vaishnava's science of love. And the fact is that by association with impersonally inclined people, personalists, even somebody practicing Vaishnavism with all its richness, all of its wealth of philosophical understanding, will become afflicted by it. I've seen many people that become afflicted in that way. Gurudev used to always warn that. That's why you don't associate with impersonalists. Anyway, Pralambasura represents that. And he's stealing Baladev. Who is Baladev? He is the supersoul. He expands as the supersoul, and he also expands to create all the living entities. So by stealing him, you're stealing the self. Right? So Guru, he fights that. Srila Prabhupada's own pranam mantra was what? Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachardane. He's the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. He preaches pure Vaishnavism based on the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Nirvishesh Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatadine. He's come to uproot and destroy these conceptions. So this is Baladev Prabhu. He teaches that. And killing those two demons represents that. So Gurudev goes on to explain that while on pilgrimage, he went to Naimisharanya, where the Rishi Ramaharshan was speaking the Puranas, and 88,000 sages were listening. Ramaharshan was the appointed authority on all the Puranic literature, and he was vastly learned in all of it. He could recite all of them perfectly. The sages all stood up to show Baladev respect and honor, but Ramaharshan did not. He did not even fold his palms. Baladev is the personification of religion, and he wanted to establish the religious etiquette between guru and disciple. If one tries to teach others and at the same time is offensive to the bona fide guru, Baladev is the original guru, he is destroyed. Ramaharshan was a prominent disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, whose guru is Sri Baladeva Prabhu. So as Vyasadeva gives all the Vedic literature, Ramaharshan was that disciple who was entrusted with the Puranic side. But Ramaharshan had no realization. He was thinking, I'm the most learned here. I am a Brahmana. Baladev, he didn't recognize him as God. He thought, oh, it's just a Kshatriya, powerful prince. So why should I stand up? He should respect me. So if you're teaching the Puranas and you don't understand the conclusion of the Puranas, how can you be a bona fide authority? And if you offend by not standing up, but because Baladev represents his Param Gurudev, right? You know, it's terrible. So what did Baladev do? Sri Baladev touched Ramaharshan with a piece of kusha grass, and he immediately died. He didn't touch him directly even. He touched him with this grass. One, to show his power, and two, because, I don't want to touch you. You're so contaminated. So, the sages lamented and asked, now who will speak the Puranas? Baladev replied, don't worry, I can bring him back to life. They said, no, what you have done is proper, but we need a speaker. Baladev then called for Ramaharshan's son Ugrashrava, also called sometimes Ramaharshan Sutta, right, son, and blessed him to be the speaker. Ugra means tenacious, and Shrava means hearing. Because Ugrashrava was blessed by Baladev Prabhu, he had a great capacity for hearing Harikatha. Right, because he was the only 5-year-old son of this Ramaharshan. But because he was touched by Lord Baladev, all knowledge came to him. Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita. How does that happen? What is it? Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, Hridesh Arjuna Tishtati, right? I'm in the heart of every living entity. And then how does that verse begin? Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto, matak smatir jnanam apohanam cha. Vedaishcha savayard aham eva vedyo vedanta kridveda vedeva chaham. Sarvasya cha aham, I'm in everyone's heart, hridi sannivishto. And I give matak smatir jnanam apohanam cha. From me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Of what? Vedaischa savayard aham eva vedyo. Vedanta kridveda vedeva chaham. I am the source of all Vedic literature. I'm the embodiment of it. I know all of it. I teach it, right? And so he can give it to anyone at any time. And there's so many stories. Generally, the path for most conditioned living entities is the path of sadhana under the direction of Sri Guru. But sometimes, just to show something extraordinary, he will enlighten somebody instantly by a touch, by a glance, by coming in the heart, these different ways. So Sutta, this son of Ramaharshan, was instantly enlightened. He became the authority by the power of Sri Guru, right? And then he later on attended the discussion between Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, before Parikshit Maharaj left this world and received complete enlightenment from Sutta Goswami. And then what we read as Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the recitation of this same sutta. Right? Sometimes he quotes Shukadev, sometimes he'll be telling stories, but that whole Bhagavatam is his answers to the questions of the sages in Naimisharanya. So Baladev Prabhu empowered. So Baladev is the source of the Bhagavatam as well. In Ram Leela, there was a gorilla named Dvivida who performed profuse service to Ram. He helped build the bridge to Lanka, and he helped in the war against Ravan. Although he was devoted to Ram, he was offensive to Lakshman, Ram's younger brother, who is a manifestation of Baladev, and therefore a manifestation of Akhanda Guru Tattva. Dvivida gorilla was against Lakshman, and during Krishna Leela, he was also against Sri Baladeva Prabhu. If one is against Ashraya Bhagavan, Krishna in the form of his servant, then Vishaya Bhagavan, Krishna, as the supreme enjoyer, will not protect or forgive him. The only fruit of that person's offense to Guru is his destruction by the club and plow of Baladev Prabhu. Right, and this Dvivida was so angry that he actually lost his sense of appreciation to Krishna as well. Because during the time of Krishna, he became an opponent to all the Brahmanas. He was going everywhere, creating problems, destruction, destroying forests, interrupting and destroying sacrificial arenas, giving trouble to the Brahmanas. And finally, when Baladev was there dancing with his beloved associates, he came and disrupted that. And we'll read that pastime. And he was so offensive that Baladev had a big fight with him. He was very powerful. In fact, in Ram Leela, this is the sad thing, because he had come to associate with demons like Bhaumasura and others. He took on that demoniac quality. He had assisted Lord Ram in the building of the bridge and in fighting in Lanka. But that seed of destruction in the form of dislike for Lakshman, just as no one can approach and please Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without the grace of Lord Nityananda. Same way with Ram, Lord Ram, same way with Krishna. Right? Baladeva expands himself in Ram Leela as Lakshman. He is Nityananda in Gaura Leela, so you can't offend him. I wonder if Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that. Oh, I think I closed that document. Oh, there we are. No, that's the lecture. Okay. Anyway, the purport of that is given by Gurudev. If there is no Guru Bhakti, life is useless. So we're supposed to remember these philosophical points on this day of Baladev's appearance, because we're praying to him to be empowered to serve our gurus in the best way, right? That he can remove anarthas, obstacles, and instill in us, just like he did with Ramaharshan Sutta, Ugra Shrava Sutta, Sutta Goswami. Even as a young boy, he empowered him. Dhruva Maharaj was empowered in a similar way, right? So if we pray to him, may give us extra strength. So, if there is no Guru Bhakti, life is useless. Guru Nishta, steady faith in Guru, is the backbone of Bhakti, and without it, life has no use. So, suppose a person comes to you, speaks Harikatha, and then says, "Come with me, I will take you to a bona fide Guru." If you then go to that Guru and receive the initiation mantra, can you ever repay that person who brought you? Even if that person is a Kanishta Adhikari, the third class of Vaishnava, if he is telling you what is bhakti and you are not grateful, you lose your bhakti. I have a friend like that. He comes up here and visits. We joined, we're friends from a young age, and we're hippies and all that. But by circumstance, he somehow met the devotees, got a Bhagavad Gita, went to the temple, and then he brought the Bhakti Godhead back, and he told me about it. And so he took me to the temple for a Sunday feast. And then he joined within a week or two. I joined a week or two later. He left living in the temple full-time after about 6 months. But he maintained a connection and an attachment, which he has to this day. He got initiated, not by Prabhupada, but by one disciple. And he's been following, so we still see each other. And he sees me as his teacher, because I've kept going now, I'm sannyasi, this and that. And he always comes and we talk, and he's very appreciative. But I also have that special affection to him for the fact that he's the one that took me to the temple. And I should never forget that, right? Even if externally I appear to be in a different situation, by social convention, a higher position, but in the realm of bhakti, who can say who is what, He still has great, devotion, and I acknowledge that. I'm grateful to him. We were friends before on a social level, but we've been friends since then on a much deeper level. So, is it possible to repay the debt accrued for receiving transcendental knowledge? Even if your teacher is Kanishta, it is an offense not to repay him. And what to speak if he is an Uttam Mahabhagavat, a bona fide guru who is a manifestation of Krishna, and he is looking after you. If you go against him, then Krishna creates a hell worse than anything he has already made, and it will be waiting for you. If one offends a bona fide guru, millions upon millions of future lives are lost and wasted. So you may struggle in your practice of bhakti. That's not unusual. It's a crooked path, and we have so many attachments in this world. We're not very strong. And so we may not perfectly follow all the time. But never, ever begin to doubt or offend your guru, right? Or adopt some other philosophy thinking, oh, what he taught can't be true because I'm not making sufficient advancement. Oh, he's not giving me everything that is possible there. This other person said if I go to him, he'll give it to me right away. And then you reject your guru. No, 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 no. If you do that, you've lost. Oh, I had one godbrother, he disciple of Srila Gurudev, took sannyas, was doing really good preaching, but he came impatient. And he thought, oh, Guru promised me I would have, siddha deha, and I haven't gotten it yet. So he abandoned him, and he went to some other Babaji in Vrindavan with the promise that he could become a Babaji and get siddha deha. And so to do that, though, that Babaji required you give up your connection with that Guru. Am I your Guru or is he your Guru? Okay, so you have to give it up. And he did. And then he took a new name, a new dress, and he tried to practice, but he got nothing. And then he left that. And before he joined, he had been a Christian and a Christian pastor. Now, sometimes devotees fall back into that state, but Christianity, there's a certain level there, It's understandable that if somebody's grown up in that and they can't adopt bhakti in our way completely, they may just go back to that level. If they don't commit offense, then okay. But this person, he wanted the honor and reputation of being a pastor or teacher again, and he was on YouTube blaspheming in the most horrible way, calling everything that he'd done demoniac and demons and, all of this. So he's lost everything. I had one godbrother who, he's super intelligent. He's really one of the most intelligent people I ever knew. But maybe he's too intelligent. But then he began to study and he went directly to Srila Prabhupada. He said, I think I've understood everything. I don't need a guru anymore. And I don't know what the detail. When you think that, then what do you think? Oh, I'm Krishna. I'm Mahaprabhu. I am all of these things, right? And he said to Srila Prabhupada, I don't think I need a guru anymore. Prabhupada said, yes, you don't need a guru. He was rejecting him. And so he left. And he still does YouTube videos on the history of India and all. I ran into him once. I knew him. He's a friend in Santa Cruz once. But spiritually. Another one of Srila Prabhupada's Sanskrit editors was living in Vrindavan. He was one of the chief. And you see him in pictures everywhere, traveling with Srila Prabhupada. But in Vrindavan, he heard so many things from different people undermining his faith in Srila Prabhupada and the way he was teaching. And he went to Srila Prabhupada and said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, I want your blessings. He was trying to follow Vaishnava etiquette, right? You want my blessings for what? To find a bona fide guru, topmost guru. He was thinking that Srila Prabhupada was not topmost, probably because he wasn't teaching to his disciples yet the higher teachings, because we weren't qualified. And somebody had put it into his head that, oh, he's not qualified. And so now he had doubts and he was wanting to follow this other person. And he had come to that stage. I want your blessings to find a bona fide guru. What an insult to Srila Prabhupada. Nityananda Avesh, right? Recognized by all Gaudiya Vaishnavas as like topmost. At any rate, Srila Prabhupada said, yes, I give you the blessings that you will find a bona fide guru in 100 lifetimes. And it's actually a blessing, because if you reject your guru like that, millions of lifetimes of separation. That's the hell that he is talking about. Hell means absence of God, absence of love, separation. Doesn't necessarily mean burning in fire, but it means separation, which is its own kind of terrible, terrible situation. So this poor person who had so much, was serving Srila Prabhupada so intimately, so importantly, now separated because of that. Steady faith in Guru, lost. If a person rejects a bona fide Guru, don't maintain any friendship with him. This is not a laughing matter. If you keep association with karmis, jnanis, and yogis, even those in the dress of Vaishnavas, you will lose your bhakti very quickly. What they have become, you will become, in other words. Don't praise them and don't criticize them, or you will lose your bhakti. Don't associate by body or mind. Criticizing them is to associate by the mind. Keep such persons out of your mind, otherwise you will very quickly get their qualities. Right? So why did I explain all those things? Right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that there are 3 ways in which you can discuss such a situation, and then it doesn't become negative criticism. For your own benefit and enlightenment, to learn the situation that took place so that you won't make the same mistake, you have to know that. For the benefit of the whole world, for others, right? Or for the benefit of that person themselves. So if that's your motive, and you're not in the mindset of criticism, which is very negative, if you're in the mindset of criticism and you're meditating on those qualities, then they come to you. You create a bridge, and that quality comes into your heart. Right? And you're actually doing them a favor because you're pulling it out. And your good qualities go to them. Right? So that's what he means by don't criticize. Be very careful. This world is immersed in the hellish environment of criticism. Friends and enemies. What is being created, what exists on social media, what exists in politics, all social engagements, it's all based now on criticism, and the flames of that are being fed constantly. Polite and enlightened discourse is evaporating. The ability to discuss differences with an open mind has gone, right? Either you're with me or against me, right? And that drags everybody down to the lowest level, and it also creates an impediment for spiritual discourse as well. Because if you think, well, I'm just talking about this politician, of course I can talk about that guy, he's a rascal, he's a demon, he's a karmi. But that mentality, if you cultivate it, it will affect your spiritual dealings as well. So I see sometimes devotees, they just go on Facebook and they get so involved in this kind of dialogue and discourse. And they don't realize how it's creating a very unfavorable platform in their consciousness for proper spiritual discourse and practice. So, don't associate by body or mind. Criticizing them is to associate by mind. Keep such persons out of your mind, otherwise you will very quickly get their qualities. If you throw water on an electric wire, the electrified water will splash back on you, and you will get electrocuted. It's true. In Bangalore, we were living in this one neighborhood that was created very quickly from a village. And so it took a long time even to get a concrete road down the main, what to speak of water and electricity. And I don't know if you've seen the electricity, the way they do it in some places in India. It's crazy. And so they had this one pole. It's just up the road in Kagabatspur. You turn a left on that main road, go up to a few stores up there. And this guy who had lived in the village had what you call a goshala, which means he kept cows there. And he still kept the cows, but instead of feeding them grass, he just let them graze in the garbage heaps. And he would sell that milk. But the cows would just go everywhere, and there were certain places where people would just throw their garbage, all their refuse, and the cows would eat. And there was one power pole that was there. And it had lines going in every direction, this way, that way, not grounded properly, just crazy. And during the rainy season, it was raining like anything. And the water is coming down from this power pole and was soaking into this garbage heap. And the cows would eat from this garbage heap. And one evening we walked by, and there was a cow dead on the pole, right next to the pole, because it had been eating from the garbage heap, and it got electrocuted. And it just lay there until like 12 hours later, somebody dragged it away. And there were sometimes incidences, oh God, in Bangalore where people would relieve themselves, men, you know how they do. And one guy did it against one of those power poles, and he got electrocuted and died. Pretty gruesome way to go.
Very extreme examples, Maharaj.
What?
Early morning.
What?
Very extreme examples for early morning.
Right. Well, it keeps you awake, right? If you're starting to drift, oh, what? He did what? And he died? But as gruesome as that is, that's not as gruesome as criticizing a Vaishnava and those and bad qualities and everything coming into your heart and what the result is. Then what dies? Not your body, but your soul loses its opportunity to develop love of God. So if you think, every time if you think of that story, think, oh, how much worse? Criticizing is so much worse even than that. If you associate with those who are offensive or sinful, their qualities will reflect in your own heart. So be careful. Don't associate with them even in dreams. If anyone is against Guru, don't even see his shadow. Otherwise, your bhakti will not manifest for millions upon millions of lives. Bhakti can only manifest by Guru's mercy. With this consideration, move on in life. This evening, we will again sit together and discuss the tattva of Sri Baladeva Prabhu. That was his lecture. Yeah.
Maharaj, if somebody is against, my guru,
Yeah.
and keeps arguing about things and stuff, are we supposed to somehow talk to them and heal them, or just let them be, or not associate?
Generally, the prescription, he says, if you're offenses to your own guru, should you try to convince them? If you're very powerful and strong and have a relationship where you can change their mind, you can do, but the general recommendation is to leave that place. One time, Bhagrat Maharaj, our Bhagrat Maharaj, he tells a story. This is like in the, maybe 2004, 5. One of my godbrothers who had come to Gurudev, and he'd been a sannyasi, but under Srila Prabhupada, but he gave it up, but Gurudev gave him sannyas again. But again, he drifted away. He was someone that had a tendency to criticize people a lot and to undermine their enthusiasm and joy in bhakti. Very, could be a not pleasant person. And he came to Gurudev, and his faith was being renewed, but that tendency came up again. And then it began to be directed towards Gurudev even himself.
Oh, wow.
And he then began to drift away. And at the last point, drifting away, Bhagrat Maharaj, who knew him very well, we were all peers from that time, was speaking to him, and he heard such horrible criticism of Gurudev on the phone. Was it direct or on the phone? I don't remember. But I think it was on the phone. They were talking, yeah. And Bhagrat was so disturbed, he immediately called Gurudev. Now, this is in Miami. Gurudev was there in Miami, and Bhagrat was there. And so he was able to just call the house that he was staying in, and he was able to talk to him. And he revealed what he had heard and how terrible he felt and what effect and what should I do. And it was very good he did it, because otherwise it would have sat in his heart, and Gurudev could cleanse that. And he told him, he said, what you should do, are you near any water, any pond or ocean? He said, I'm at the beach, because Gurudev was staying in a big condominium on the beach with one disciple. And he was nearby there. And he said, immediately go walk into the water with all your clothes. And he did it. And he laughs about it. He says, all these people saw me this guy walking into the ocean with all his clothes on, submerging himself and then walking out. What were they thinking? But he was laughing. And he said, after I did that, I felt so much relieved and better. That's another prescription as well, to just cleanse yourself of that horror. You have to be really careful what you hear. I remember, like hearing blasphemy is a terrible thing. When we used to distribute books, we would oftentimes hear people say terrible things. And usually in those days, we were very argumentative and we would try to defeat them. But usually what that would end up with was them just doing more and more, and us not being able to really convince them. We could out-argue them, but not convince them, right? So it's actually an offense to preach the glories of the holy name to an unreceptive or envious person, because they will commit offense. You'll hear it. They'll be more implicated. It's not good for either of you to be in that environment. And I can still remember some of the things that people said. That's how strong those things are. They just stick in the heart, because I didn't know what to do at that time. And so, you'll have to suffer that a little bit. Yeah, so generally you just leave immediately.
And if someone is criticizing Guru on his face, and you can see that Guru is very affected by it, and he doesn't know what to do about it because he's gentle and and he's like, what are you supposed to do in that situation?
Well, that's difficult. Generally you have to follow the lead of Guru, because Guru, he'll protect you, and he may not want you to get into it more. He may not want you to get into it more at that point, because it may cause even a greater disturbance. You want to go over and beat the person, but but that may not be the right prescription.
So leave that person, and it's his or her on our side.
Yeah, so you don't hang out with that person, even if you think, oh, well, they're nice, they're trying to be a devotee. No, the aparad to Guru or any Vaishnava, it creates a terrible environment. Terrible environment, and it's uncomfortable for everybody. Generally, when somebody becomes like that, they won't be staying in the temple or the community for that long. You want to try to create a situation where you can get rid of them, but ultimately Krishna will remove them, right? Guru, Baladev, will remove them. So we heard so much philosophy now, Guru Tattva. This is how Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj wanted us to understand something of Baladev Prabhu representing Sri Guru, right? But at noon, we'll gather together and we'll hear some nice pastimes, but then we'll be able to reflect on the pastimes and understand the deeper quality, and also gain more appreciation and attraction. Another name of Baladev is Sankarshan. When Gargamuni gave the names to Krishna and Baladev, he said he understood that they were Krishna and Balaram, Supreme Lord, in his first expansion. And he said, this name Sankarshan means that he will attract the minds and hearts of all living beings, right, to the path of bhakti. He is the Sri Guru. So we'll stop here. So let's see, let's find that. This Srila Prabhupada Gita. Ooh, I didn't have this set right. It's just the top of my head. Oh, well. I never do this recording right. All right. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai, Sri Baladev Prabhu Akhanda Guru Tattva Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.